Now, I know that this video is going to be an absolute hot mess, but I look so fucking cunty I had to do it anyway. We're serving cunt today. Hey, it's your dandy, Candy, and it's Pride Month. Or it was when I started working on this video. I mean, the way that I tend to upload things, who knows, it might be July or August by now, but fuck it, let's pretend. Yes, it is Pride Month. That wonderful time of the year where everyone seems to have really strong opinions about rainbow pillows at Target, and the queer community celebrates the progress that's been made for equal rights and representation under the law, while simultaneously reminding people that there are still societal issues both locally and abroad that need to be changed. It's also that time of the year where a lot of content creators decide to make an obligatory Pride Month video. Usually it's stuff knocking rainbow capitalism, memes, and shit like that. But I figured since, we mostly talk about art on this channel, I would cover some queer artists. And I couldn't think of anyone better to cover for our first Pride video than the Queen of Filth himself, Divine. Now, before we get started, this is just going to be a cursory glance at the career of Divine, as there are a plethora of documentaries, books, and other content creators who have covered Divine's life more thoroughly. And we like to keep it light and fun on this channel, because otherwise I'd spend forever in analysis paralysis and we never get any videos up, which I'm sure some people would appreciate, but where's the fun in that? So think of this as more of an appetizer, if you will, or a horse d'oeuvre, if you want to be fancy. And if this is your first time learning about Divine and are interested in seeing some of their early work, then boy, oh boy, are you in for a treat. And with that out of the way, let us commence. Before RuPaul, before Trixie, and yes, shockingly enough, even before Lady Bunny, there was Divine. Born Harris Glenn Milstead, Divine, which we'll be referring to them as for the remainder of the video since they used both of those names interchangeably throughout their career, was a disco and dance music sensation, actor of both stage and screen, and a drag icon. Raised in a middle-class conservative family, Divine first got interested in drag through their friend David Lochbury while working as a hairdresser, and by the mid-60s had gotten into the full swing of Baltimore's queer culture scene, where he met legendary gonzo filmmaker John Waters, who gave them their famous nom de plume. Divine joined Waters' acting troupe, the Dreamlanders, alongside Lochbury, where they played female roles for his experimental short films, Roman Candles, Eat Your Makeup, and the Diane Linkletter Story, as well as his first full-length movies, Mondo Trasho and Multiple Maniacs. Now, Divine's look was more traditional at this point, or fish as the professionals call it, taking heavy inspiration from his favorite film actress Elizabeth Taylor, with their next film Pink Flamingos being the starting point for their more outlandish style that they'd later be known for. This iconic look was inspired by Divine and Waters' times visiting the Baltimore ball scene, and it was more Waters' idea than Divine's, encouraging him to wear more outfits that showed off his belly and his weight, exaggerating his makeup more, cutting back on the hairline, and brandishing weapons. As Waters wanted Divine to become the Godzilla of DragQueens, a title very fitting for the larger-than-life personality that he had adopted for the role. Now, Divine had begun to gain quite a cult following at this point, due to Multiple Maniacs and Pink Flamingos making their rounds on the late-night movie circuit. And he began juggling between acting in Waters' films, performing in small stage productions, and performing with the San Francisco-based drag troupe The Coquettes alongside their fellow Dreamland alumni Mink Stowe, as well as recording their own disco tracks, which they'd incorporate into their drag shows that were usually unscripted, laced with profanities like their famous catchphrase, "fuck you very much," involved fondling fans that came up on stage, and then occasionally also ended with Divine fighting another drag queen. And they say drag isn't a full contact sport. In '74, he would star in Waters' film Female Trouble, which would be the first time that he would appear on screen as a male character, which is something that Divine felt was important, seeing as Divine was worried at this point that he would be typecast as a female impersonator the rest of his career. Now, Divine identified as a gay man, and he viewed drag as his job, even so far as being quoted as saying, "My favorite part of drag is getting out of it. Drag is my work clothes. I only put it on when someone pays me to." That's probably a very horrible Divine impression, and I apologize in advance. But that is somewhat relatable. I mean, honestly, this fucking day has just been a hot fucking mess. And drag, I may not agree with the perspective of the work clothes part of it, but it is very uncomfortable. gets hot, it gets stuffy, not to mention all the makeup that you got to put on, your costume constantly fucking up. And then there's the tucking if you get down with that. Really don't, because you never see anything. Whatever. Look at my hat. Though Divine was mostly known for playing his female roles, he did actually manage to snag a few more male roles throughout his career, like in the films Trouble in Mind, where he played a gay mafia boss, and Hairspray, where he did double duty as both the bigoted TV station owner Arvin Hodgepile and Tracy Turnblad's mother Edna Turnblad, a role that was considered their breakout starring role into the mainstream audience, and would later be portrayed by the insatiable Harvey Fierstein in the Broadway musical adaptation, as well as John Travolta in the big screen adaptation of the musical in one of the most nightmare-inducing fat suits I have ever seen. Like, don't get me wrong now, John Travolta is a great actor. They're campy, they have experiences in dance and musicals. In fact, they are the star of one of the most well-known musicals of the 20th century, Grease. But honey, sweetie, boo-boo, baby, sugar pie, pumpkin, snickerdoodle, honey, honey, honey. They had your ass looking like Barney in that thing. Come on now. What are you doing? In 81, Divine would star in Polyester, playing the role of a meek and abused suburban housewife with an unruly family, which was the polar opposite of the usual bombastic, trashy, foul-mouthed she-devils that they'd be known for portraying. He also auditioned for Ridley Scott's tech-noir cyberpunk classic Blade Runner for an undisclosed male role, which unfortunately he didn't get, but really did impress Scott to the point where he wanted to work with him on a future project, which unfortunately never came to be. This is also an important year for Divine, as they had finally reunited with their estranged family after a 9-year hiatus that had stemmed over his outlandish spending habits. A problem that would follow him throughout his career, as they would tend to spend money faster than they could make it. Living a wild life of fine dining, gifts, and traveling abroad and taking in the nightclub scene, even frequenting the famous Studio 54 when he lived in New York. Now that'd be a fun video to do right there. Studio 54. I think we'll put a pin on that for now and circle back to it. In 82, he would collaborate with composer Bobby Orlando to release several high-energy tracks, including Native Love and Shoot Your Shot. For those not into music, high energy is a genre of EDM or electronic dance music that was popularized in the late 70s and is known for its high tempo and low funk sound structure. It was a fairly popular genre in Europe back in the 80s that surpassed disco and became synonymous with queer nightclub culture even to this day. If you're still lost in the woods about all that, think about songs like Donna Summer's I Feel Love and Patrick Hernandez's Born to Be Alive as some early examples of high energy music that you've probably heard at some point in time on the radio or in a commercial or some shit. Divine would spend a good portion of the 80s going on tours and promoting their albums and their movies, and as well as their stage productions on shows like Good Morning America, Letterman, and The Merv Griffin Show. But the business relationship eventually soured with Orlando, as Divine felt that they weren't getting their fair share of the profits off the music sales, and they eventually got their contract nullified, switching to Intune Music, where they produced his hit tracks You Think You're a Man and I'm So Beautiful, which absolutely fucking slaps. Now, they'd feature in a few more movies around this time, like the previously mentioned Hairspray, Lust in the Dust, which was one of their very rare movies that wasn't directed by John Waters, and their final film, Out of the Dark, which they only had a bit part in that unfortunately released a year after their tragic death of heart failure at 42. Called one of the few radical and essential artists of the century, who was an audacious symbol of man's quest for liberty and freedom, Divine was an insanely talented and passionate person with a larger-than-life personality that left quite a legacy. Now, I was a bit nervous and excited at the same time about making this video, because I was worried that because Divine is one of my inspirations, that I wouldn't be able to do them proper justice with the way that we do our videos here, and that it might come across more ass-kissy than anything else, which it probably did. I mean, let's be honest, you tend to gush over your favorites, but I don't know, I still felt it was important to make this video. We also skipped over a lot of stuff, admittedly, like how they were the direct inspiration for Ursula the Sea Witch in The Little Mermaid, because that's pretty common knowledge at this point in time. Or how people thought that Divine had some kind of poop fetish after the scene in Pink Flamingos, even though he literally just did it for a bit. Or how part of the reason why they were in San Francisco, besides just performing with the Cockettes, was also because they were currently wanted in the state of Maryland at that point for illegally selling furniture that they had stolen from a furnished apartment that they were renting out at their thrift shop that they had, or their excessive use of marijuana, which, who am I to judge? Divine was far from perfect. They had their own flaws and brilliance like the rest of us do, some more than others. But I wanted to do this video about Divine because I feel that Divine was and still is an important figure in the queer community. Divine was a pioneer of queer culture through their actions, which is way more important than words, as they never openly talked about queer rights because they were concerned about it ruining their career, which at that point in time, it very well would have. But through their work, they pushed the boundaries of self-expression and acceptance, through shock and awe and vulgarity, and have become an inspiration to many who had felt overlooked by society's rigid standards, including myself, as Divine was who inspired my interest in drag in the first place. The queer community has come a long way over the years, and a lot of hard battles have been fought, but those rights are always one step away from the chopping block, especially with that Project 2025 shit that's coming out. And it's important to remember that the first Pride was a riot, and its icons were revolutionaries, especially with Pride being so heavily corporatized now, pushing this gentrified image of queer culture as being squeaky clean, hard-body Kens and Barbies, living in perfect little plastic houses without a care in the world, while ignoring the reality around us, where wearing something fruity or being a little too open outside of the neighborhood can get you really fucked up or worse, where bad faith revisionists with an agenda are actively rewriting the history of why Pride began in the first place, and where your very existence is boiled down and dismissed as identity politics, with everyone focusing more on rainbow pillows and padded swimsuits and saying dumb shit like, "When's Straight Pride Month?" It starts in July and ends in May. Divine taught us that true beauty comes from within, and that you don't make progress through politeness and conformity. Don't get me wrong, I like the rainbow pillows, I do. I also love the parades and all that kinds of cool shit. But Pride is about more than pillows and rainbows. Divine, in my very, 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 very biased opinion, is part of what Pride represents to me. Living your life as unapologetically as you can. Bucking society's rules and what they say you can and can't wear, identify as, act like, and love. And telling the assholes who want to tell you that you're just confused. You should pray more. That you're delusional. That you should be less butch or less film. That Pride would be so much better without the kink and the drag queens. And that you're better off staying in the closet to, well, eat shit. So here's to Divine. The mother of mayhem, the goddess of garbage, the queen of the cunts. Fuck you very much. And skull. Ooh, honey, I should have froze that shit. And if you somehow, some way liked this video, you know the deal. And if you didn't like this video, well, you know the deal. If you want to check out some of our art, go ahead and head on over to our Etsy shop. Etsy.com/shop/candydandyart. We recently posted some neat looking rainbow abstract pieces over there. So if rainbows are your thing, go on and get it. And if you want to learn more about Divine, like I said, there are plenty of books and documentaries and other content creators who have covered them. I personally would recommend the documentary I Am Divine, which, if I'm not mistaken, is currently on Tubi at the moment. I guess that's a random shout out to Tubi as well. I mean, it's not an ad. Like every motherfucker's gonna try to give me an ad. Fuck out of here. But they do have a pretty solid selection of queer content on that streaming platform, as well as some deep fucking library of 80s horror films, Italian giallo films, and tokusatsu, which is just my fucking jam. We're getting a little sidetracked here, but this has been Candy Dandy. Thank you for your time, and I hope you have a good one. All right, cool, fine, fuck it. Oh, that hat. And the queer community. Slow down. Horstovery, if you want to be fancy with it, where they met the Gon. Ooh, they stomping. Where he met legendary Gonzo filmmaker Let's try to mystery science that shit up a little bit there. Quite a cult. Ugh. Quite a cult following. Whoa, that wabbit. Multiple maniacs and flink. And they say drag isn't a full contact sport. Even being okay. Studio 54. As Divine felt that they weren't getting their fair share of the money out of the. Switching to in-tune music, where they would put on Etsy.com/shop/CandyDandyArt. And I hope you have a good one.